Revealed. How a little girl's simple request transformed a grumpy millionaire's life. Forever Charlie Thompson was notorious in his quaint suburban town. The millionaire with a castle of solitude just didn't fit in. Sheltered behind tall gates and hedges, he loomed larger than life, grumpy and isolated. The laughter of children echoed from the playground nearby, but to Charlie, it was just noise. Viewing the community gatherings from his window, his dark scowl deepened. What could they possibly know about real challenges? Each dollar he earned built a higher wall between him and the warmth of human connection. One chilly afternoon, as dark clouds hung heavy in the sky, he reluctantly made his way to the grocery store. His car plowed through puddles, and for each splash, he grumbled louder, worrying how wet his expensive suits might get. But just as he was about to step inside his car, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "Excuse me, sir?" Charlie glanced down, his annoyance curdling into surprise. A bright-eyed 10-year-old girl, Lucy, stood before him, clutching a box of homemade cookies like it was a gold-plated treasure. Her smile lit up the dull autumn afternoon. "Would you like to buy a box to support my school's fundraiser?" she asked, her innocence and hope melting the icy grip around his heart. Initially, Charlie scoffed. "No, kid. I don't have time for this." He waved her away, ready to retreat back into his air of indifference. But then he caught her grandmother's soft voice. "Remember, Lucy, kindness is a beautiful thing." It stopped him in his tracks. Something about that small interaction stirred a long-dormant part of him. Reluctantly, he fished out his wallet, buying a box of cookies. This act, though tiny, cracked open a fissure in his fortress. Over the following weeks, he found himself drawn back into the world he had shunned. It felt strange to laugh with the volunteers at the shelter, comforting families who had nowhere to lay their heads. How had he let his wealth blind him to the struggles around him? But just as Charlie started to soften, disaster struck the town. A fire at the community center left families scrambling for shelter. Lucy and her friends rallied the community, hearts brimming with determination as they organized a charity event. As Charlie watched from the shadows of his castle, the stark contrast between his insulated life and their struggle gnawed at him. How could he reconcile his cushy existence with the gritty reality of his neighbors? Charlie wrestled with fears about mingling his wealth with their vulnerability. But it was Lucy, bubbling with hope and energy, who continually tugged at his conscience. The tiny girl who had tapped at his heart so softly was now a giant force of inspiration. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed, and with each one, his heart felt heavier. As the charity event approached, Charlie faced a gut-wrenching choice. Would he finally break the chains of his solitude and join the community, or retreat back to the shadows of his wealth? The battle within him surged, and he felt an impending sense of change. What would happen if he embraced the warmth around him? The answer loomed just out of reach, leaving a spark of hope tinged with uncertainty, making it impossible to ignore the question that tugged at him. Could he truly become a part of this world he had shut out? Charlie stared out the window of his castle, the sight of neighbors buzzing with activity tugging at something deep within him. The smell of freshly baked pies and laughter spilled into the air, contrasting sharply with the silence that surrounded his home. He could see Lucy flitting from group to group, her laughter a melody that pierced through his heavy heart. Taking a deep breath, Charlie moved away from the tint of glass and turned back to the darkened corners of his home. It was time. He had hidden too long, cocooned in his wealth and bitterness. The thought of attending the charity event filled him with anxiety, but it was not the dread of mingling that made him hesitate. It was the fear of truly connecting, of being seen. Lucy's words echoed in his mind. Kindness is a beautiful thing. What would it be like to share kindness instead of dismissing it? The question lingered in the corner of his mind, pulling at him like a child tugging at a parent's sleeve. It was time for action. No more shadows. With a burst of determination, he suited up, not his usual cold business attire, but something more approachable. After moments of deliberation, He chose a simple jacket and jeans, something that made him feel less like a wall and more like a part of the scene. As he stepped outside, the chill of the evening air hit him, but warm lights glimmered in the distance. The decorations on the community hall sparkled like stars, and he felt a stir of something akin to excitement. The street buzzed with activity, and as he approached, the hum of buzzing conversations became a tide he felt he could finally swim against. "Charlie," a friendly voice called from the group. It was Mr. Peterson, the neighbor from 3 doors down, his face a mask of surprise, yet welcoming. "Look who decided to join us. Are you helping with the setup?" Charlie hesitated. He opened his mouth as though to decline, the instinct born from years of isolation fighting hard. Yet, something inside him pushed forward. "Yes, I'd like to help," he heard himself say. A wave of applause erupted from those nearby. Moments later, Lucy rushed over, her eyes sparkling like the decorations that surrounded them. "You came," she exclaimed, her joy radiating like sunshine. "We're so glad you're here. Together, we can make a difference." Suddenly, he felt the weight of his past fade, replaced by a flicker of warmth he hadn't even realized he was missing. Setting to work, he found himself laughing alongside neighbors, constructing tables, hanging streamers, each small act forging a connection he had thought impossible. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the lights of the charity event twinkled to life. The excitement buzzed in the air, a promise of hope and togetherness. Charlie stood beside Lucy, who was now coordinating a group of volunteers with passion. In that moment, looking into her bright eyes, he understood the magic of community. It was about shared burdens, laughter, and the unyielding strength that comes from supporting one another. Yet, as they prepared for the opening of the event, thoughts raced through his mind. Would this new connection last? Would he remain present in their lives, or would his old fears resurface? He realized there was so much more to lose if he walked away again. What was the cost of embracing the vulnerability of connection? As the event kicked off and the community poured in, anticipation fluttered inside him. He was in this now, not just a bystander, but part of something bigger, something meaningful. But just as he felt at home, a flicker of doubt crept in. Could he truly change? With uncertainty lingering in his heart, one question arose louder than the rest. How much of himself was he willing to give to fully embrace this new chapter of his life? The hall buzzed with laughter and excitement as people began pouring in, filling the space with warmth and cheer. Charlie stood tall among them, his heart racing, realizing he was no longer just an observer, but a participant in this vibrant tapestry of humanity. He helped where he could, carrying supplies and chatting with faces that previously felt foreign to him. "Charlie, over here," Lucy called from the front of the hall. She was organizing a game for the children, and it brought a smile to his face to see her so animated. He moved toward her, feeling lighter with each step. The bustling crowd began to melt away as he honed in on her laughter. "Do you want to help me with the ring toss?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. "Sure, what do I do?" he replied, excitement tinged with a hint of nervousness. "Just hold this and help the kids." "It's simple," Lucy said, handing him a stack of colorful rings. She showed him how to set up the game, and within moments, kids were lining up, their faces painted with anticipation. Charlie crouched down to meet a little girl with pigtails, who looked up at him with wide eyes. "Can you help me? I really want to win a prize." He grinned. "Of course. Let me show you how." As he demonstrated how to toss the rings, he felt genuine joy. Each child that succeeded brought a rush of warmth. Laughter echoed, and for the first time in years, he felt part of something that mattered. As the event continued, he found himself moving from one group to another, sharing stories and experiences, his reservations gradually slipping away. Voices surrounded him like a comforting embrace. But then, amidst the festivity, he overheard a conversation nearby. 2 women were discussing the state of the charity they were raising. Funds for the community center was on the verge of closing. Panic bubbled in Charlie's stomach. Suddenly, the weight of his past reared its ugly head. This was precisely why he had isolated himself. What if his involvement wouldn't be enough? What if people saw through the facade and discovered he was merely a wealthy recluse pretending to connect? Lucy joined him, sensing his change in demeanor. "Charlie, are you okay? You look a bit pale." He struggled to find the words. "What if we can't really make a difference? What if it's all just not enough?" His confession hung in the air like a storm cloud. But we are making a difference, Charlie. She countered, her voice steady and passionate. It's about each little act of kindness that adds up. You've already brightened these kids' day. That matters. Her words struck a chord deep within him. He wanted to believe in the power of this community, in the strength of shared purpose. For once, he could envision more than walls and himself behind them. He inhaled deeply, letting go of the doubt that tangled in his mind. You're right, Charlie said, determination bubbling within. We have to keep this going. We can't let the community center close not on our watch. Filled with newfound resolve, he turned to Lucy. Let us find a way to rally the community, bring in more support. It's time to do more than just attend. Lucy's face lit up with excitement. Exactly. We can brainstorm ideas, maybe even host more events. But just as hope wrapped around him, a familiar face approached. Mr. Albright, the wealthy developer known for his ruthless reputation, strolled in, surveying the venue. He had a hold on the community that made Charlie's heart race with unease. Was he there to tear down their hard work? As Charlie's heart pounded, he could only wonder what this new encounter would mean for the fragile world he was beginning to embrace. Would Mr. Albright want to help? Or would he threaten everything they'd just built? The evening's bright lights began to flicker, casting shadows over Charlie's thoughts, a reminder that change could come with unexpected challenges. What awaited them beyond the festivities? Charlie's breath quickened as he watched Mr. Albright approach. The man wore a tailored suit that seemed to cloak him in a shroud of authority, his eyes scanning the hall with a calculating gleam. Charlie clenched his fists, uncertainty flooding his thoughts again. They had worked so hard to create this joyful space, to breathe life into the community again. What if Albright had different plans? Can we help you, Mr. Albright? Lucy said, determination in her voice, stepping a bit closer to Charlie. It's a beautiful event, Mr. Albright replied, his tone casual, but the flicker of interest in his eyes suggested he was sizing them up. But it won't be enough to save the center, will it? What do you mean? Charlie felt a surge of anger. How could this man, who had everything, undermine their efforts so easily? Look, Albright said, his gaze shifting to the crowd. What I see is a lot of enthusiasm, but also a lot of presence with limited prospects. You need funds, and it's not just about hosting events. He paused, letting the idea sink in. You must think bigger. Bigger? Charlie echoed, feeling defensive. They were already taking a leap, trying to reconnect the community after so many years of neglect. Think about what the community center could do if you had proper funding, Albright continued, his voice steady. Maybe a development plan to modernize. We could partner, you know. What do you stand to gain? Lucy cut in sharply. Or do you plan to squeeze every cent you can out of the community like always? The sharpness in her voice caught Charlie off guard. Albright raised an eyebrow. Let us just say I have my interests, but I wouldn't mind helping if it aligns with my vision. A win-win situation. You mean, you'd help us as long as we agree to your terms? Charlie challenged, but a part of him wrestled with the glimmer of hope. Could this actually be an opportunity? Albright leaned in, lowering his voice. I don't think you need to worry about appearances, Charlie. You've got money and influence. All you need is a little courage and the right partnerships. As Charlie absorbed the words, he felt a mix of frustration and excitement collide in his stomach. Maybe Albright's approach wasn't all doom and gloom. Perhaps it could lead to the solution they desperately needed. Lucy caught his eye, and he could see her mind racing. Let us say we did consider your offer, Albright, she replied, crossing her arms defiantly. What do you have in mind? I'm glad you asked, he smirked. Why don't we schedule a meeting to discuss how we can combine resources? If you can rally the community, I'll match what you raise. Charlie's heart pounded against his chest. This was a major potential turning point for them, yet it felt like bargaining with the devil. Could he trust someone like Albright? The community deserved better than someone who put profit over purpose. Before Charlie could respond, a little voice piped up from behind them. Excuse me. It was the girl with pigtails, tugging at his sleeve, a stuffed animal in her arms. Mr. Charlie, can you help me win a prize? I want to put a smile on my mom's face. She's really sad. Her round eyes glimmered with innocent hope. Charlie knelt down, his heart melting. Of course, sweetheart. Let us team up. But in that moment, he realized just how much rested on his shoulders, not just the community center, but the smiles of children like her. The stakes felt higher than ever. Mr. Albright. He started, looking back to the man who had shifted his world again. We'll consider it. But know that this isn't just about money for us. It's about people. Lucy's nod of agreement filled him with determination. Together, they could navigate the murky waters ahead not just for a center, but for every hopeful face in the hall. Albright's smirk returned, a flicker of admiration in his eyes, or was it something else? As Charlie helped the little girl, he knew a decision loomed ahead. What path would he choose, and at what cost? The festivities faded to a dull hum as the reality of the challenge loomed large. Would he have the courage to face the truth and safeguard the heart of their community? Charlie's heart raced as he watched the little girl beam with hope, her stuffed animal clutched tightly. That innocent joy reminded him of what really mattered. He took her hand, and together, they ventured towards the game booth set up along the perimeter of the community hall. Let us find a game you can win at. He encouraged her, his spirits lifting with each small step. The crowd buzzed around them, laughter and cheerful chatter filling the space. For a moment, he allowed himself to forget about Mr. Albright and the weight of the upcoming decision. As they played a simple ring toss, Charlie felt the warmth of the community wrap around him like a familiar blanket. Parents cheered as their children participated, a tapestry of connection and enjoyment. He tried to focus on the little girl's excitement, but in the back of his mind, Mr. Albright's offer loomed like a dark cloud. You know what? He said, nudging the girl playfully. If you win a prize this time, we can give it to your mom together. She'll love that, won't she? Yes, she squealed, her enthusiasm giving him a sense of strength. It was moments like this that reaffirmed his commitment to the center. Each smile, each hug, it felt like a step towards something bigger, something worth fighting for. They tried their luck at the ring toss. Charlie's hands trembled slightly on the first toss, but the little girl's gleeful encouragement fired him up. He took a deep breath, concentrated, and tossed again. The ring landed perfectly. A small prize was hers to claim, and the girl's squeal of joy shattered any lingering doubts within him that as they returned to the booth, Albright suddenly appeared, his presence casting an awkward shadow over their moment. The girl's eyes widened, but she stood her ground. Mr. Albright, look. I won, she said, lifting her prize with pride. Albright's expression softened for just a moment. That's impressive, he replied, kneeling down to her level. What are you going to do with it? I'm going to give it to my mom so she can smile again, she said brightly. It was such a simple answer, but it struck a chord deep within Charlie, amplifying something he had always known but had nearly forgotten amid the pressures of adult life. That's a kind thing to do, Albright responded. In that moment, something flickered in his eyes, a hint of warmth, perhaps even nostalgia. Lucy approached, crossing her arms as she observed the interaction. Charlie could sense her unease, the tension hanging in the air like a heavy fog. Is this the partnership you had in mind, Mr. Albright? She challenged, raising an eyebrow. Offering half-hearted compliments to a child while you scheme? I am not scheming, he defended, straightening. I'm merely evaluating the value of the community's heart. Maybe all it takes is the right perspective. Charlie's heart twisted at the thought. Was he really understanding this? Behind the suit and authority, beneath the surface of Albright's grumpy demeanor, was there a flicker of potential? Charlie, we can't trust him, Lucy said, her voice urgent. Don't let his charm fool you. Before he could respond, the little girl tugged at Albright's sleeve excitedly. Would you come to the center sometimes? She asked, her eyes wide with eagerness. We could be friends. All eyes fell on Albright. Something shifted in his expression. For a moment, Charlie was convinced he saw a man wrestling with something deep within, perhaps loneliness, perhaps regret. Then, the mask settled back in place, and Albright straightened, almost defensively. How about I attend the next event? He replied, glancing at Lucy with a calculating expression. Let us see if this community deserves attention. Charlie felt a mix of emotions swirl. Was he truly offering a chance? Or just dangling a carrot to tug them in? As the girl bounced around with excitement, Lucy gripped Charlie's arm tighter. This isn't just a game, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You must think about the future. With the festival around them still buzzing, Charlie's mind ran wild with possibilities. It felt like paths. Were branching out, would he take the risk and chase the partnerships, or prioritize guarding the spirit of the community? The little girl's laughter echoed in his ears, a light in the shadows. But the moment of decision hung heavy like a storm cloud. What kind of man would he choose to become? And was he ready for the consequences of that choice? As Charlie looked at Albright, a thought crept deep in his mind: how far down would this alliance take him? The stakes felt skydive high. But if his heart led, could it really lead to something good? Charlie felt the weight of the moment settle over him like a thick fog. He wanted to believe in Albright's words, to think there was a shred of goodness buried beneath his stern exterior. But Lucy's concerned grip on his arm pulled him back, a tether to the passion and purpose that had always motivated him. The little girl's innocent hope was like a siren's song, beckoning him to embrace a fragile dream. As Albright straightened, Charlie caught a glimpse of vulnerability in his eyes, a fleeting moment where the mask slipped. Maybe there was something more beneath that businesslike facade. But could they truly trust him? Why should you care about this community? Charlie asked, stepping closer, his heart pounding. Why now? Albright raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. Perhaps because I've been missing something, he replied quietly, as if the words had been dragged out of him. Or perhaps it's just a moment of curiosity. The little girl tugged at his sleeve again, pulling him back from the tension brewing in the air. If you come, I can show you my favorite games. And the slide is so fast. She beamed, eyes sparkling with joy. As Albright stared down at her, something flickered again. Was it longing? Regret? In that surreal moment, Charlie felt the energy around him shift. The excitement of the festival waned, and the laughter faded into a blurry backdrop. It was just them now, one frightened girl, a conflicted man, and Charlie caught in between. Maybe I was too quick to judge, Charlie admitted, his voice softer. If you really want to help, prove it. Get involved. Show us you care. Actually be present. Present? Albright echoed, his voice tinged with skepticism. It's easy to toss around empty promises. But it matters, the little girl interjected earnestly. You can make people smile. You can really help. Her tiny voice pierced through the tension, filling the air with earnest optimism. Charlie watched as Albright shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. For a moment, the stoic businessman appeared human, vulnerable even. His lips pressed together, the internal struggle warring behind his poised features. Then, Albright cleared his throat, standing taller. All right, he finally said, a hint of hesitance lacing his words. I'll come to the next event, but I'll expect results. If this community is worth my time, I'll know by then. What if we make it something special? Charlie jumped in, buoyed by the girl's infectious enthusiasm. Something big that can really change lives? Now you're talking, Albright replied, a wry smile breaking through the usual stoic mask. Let us see if they can make me a believer. As the crowd around them resumed its joyful hum, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that something big was shifting. This stark contrast between hope and skepticism made his heart race again. But this time with a silent buzz of determination. Lucy shot him a puzzled look, uncertainty still shadowing her features. Charlie, just be careful. People with power can easily turn. He nodded, but he felt lighter somehow. Perhaps this was the first step toward something unexpected. Suddenly, the little girl jumped up, clapping her hands. Can we go on the carousel next? Please. Carousel it is. Charlie smiled back, her happiness reigniting his spirit. As they walked away, he glanced back at Albright, who appeared lost in thought. Was he unsure about his next move? Or had the small interaction with the girl shifted him? Just enough? Charlie couldn't help but wonder, what ripple effects might this simple day have? And could the unlikely bond between a little girl and a grumpy millionaire really change the community's fate for good? The future felt electric. Change was brewing, and Charlie found himself turning back to Albright, curiosity swirling within him. Would this tentative alliance flourish, or would it fall apart under pressure? The next event approached, and with it, questions that could redefine everything they believed in. Would they all take that leap together? The carousel spun in a delightful blur of colors, laughter, and memories. Lucy's delighted shrieks pierced through the music as Charlie gently pushed her saddle of the painted horse. For a moment, everything felt perfect, sunlight filtering through the leaves, the smell of popcorn wafting from nearby stands, and the joyful cries of children playing. But the shadow of Albright lingered just outside the circle of joy. Look at me, Charlie, Lucy called, her cheeks flushed with excitement as she waved. I'm a princess on a dragon. Charlie chuckled, unable to contain his own smile. Seeing her joy made the weight of the world feel lighter, momentarily forgotten, just like the worries that had lodged in his heart only hours before. The vibrancy around him pulled him in, but his mind kept wandering back to Albright. What was the man thinking? 2 minutes. The operator shouted as the ride slowed. As Lucy hopped down, her face lit up with endless energy. Charlie decided it was time to confront the uncertainty nagging at him. If Albright was going to be part of their community, he needed to understand where he fit in. He scanned the crowd, finally spotting the businessman leaning against a distant tree, arms crossed, still a figure of reserved intensity. "Lucy, stay here for just a moment," Charlie said, squeezing her shoulder gently. "I'll be right back." She pouted slightly. "But I want to play Promise I Won't Be Long," he reassured her, heading toward Albright. As he approached, he felt a mix of apprehension and determination. "Hey," Charlie said casually, trying to keep the conversation light. "Enjoying the festival?" Albright turned to him, eyes narrowed slightly. "It's interesting, I suppose." "Interesting isn't a bad start," Charlie offered, leaning casually on the tree beside him. "Have you thought more about your role here?" Albright let out a sigh, shrugging his shoulders, as if trying to loosen a tension that was clearly woven deep within him. "What does it matter?" he said, glancing at the festivities. "I don't belong here. These are people, they're happy. I don't know how to fit into any of this." Charlie could feel the sincerity radiating through Albright's voice, piercing the wall he had carefully constructed over the years. There was something raw and genuine about him, something trapped beneath layers of ambition and solitude. "You might be surprised by the difference you can make," Charlie murmured, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes, just being there is enough. It's more than what you know. It's about connecting, giving." Albright's brow furrowed, and Charlie watched as his mouth tightened in thought. He felt compelled to push further. "You're a powerful man, Albright. What you do could mean everything for people like Lucy and all the kids here." "Kids?" Albright echoed, turning his gaze to the carousel. "What do they even have to do with me?" "Everything," Charlie insisted, leaning a little closer. "They have dreams, they're still figuring out their world. You can help shape that, foster hope instead of numbers or spreadsheets." The businessman looked like he was contemplating, deep lines creasing his forehead. "And if I fail? What if you succeed?" The question hung in the air, a beacon cutting through the hesitation. Charlie took a breath, allowing hope to bubble within him. One step could change everything. Just then, they both heard laughter erupt nearby. Charlie turned to see Lucy giggling as other kids joined her. The sheer joy radiating from her was infectious. "Come on, we want you to see the games," she called out, bouncing in place. Albright hesitated, glancing back at the children, a flicker of something, curiosity, longing, crossing his face. "What if I don't know how to interact with them?" "You just have to try," Charlie urged gently. "That's the first step." Albright took a deep breath, his posture shifting, as if he was shedding some of the weight he carried. Was he ready to take that leap? Could he embrace this opportunity? Charlie felt a spark of hope ignite. What if Albright finally stepped into the light? "All right," Albright said finally, his voice steadier now, almost resolute. "Show me how this is done." Charlie felt a rush of exhilaration. Together, they turned towards the laughter, moving toward the joy swirling around them. But as they walked, an unsettling question tugged at the back of Charlie's mind. Could this tentative bond withstand the challenges ahead, or was it merely a mirage allowing them to believe in something bigger? As the laughter grew louder, Charlie could not escape the growing tension that loomed just beyond the joy they had embraced. What would happen when Albright faced the truths of his past? Would he rise to the occasion, or would he retreat back into the shadows he had forged? The vibrant colors of the festival danced before them as Lucy tugged at Albright's sleeve, pulling him toward the game booths. Each stall was alive with shouts and cheers, an infectious happiness that seemed to seep into Albright with every step. He looked down at Lucy, her eyes shining with wonder, and for a moment, he seemed like he might crack a smile. "Come on, Mr. Albright. You can win me a prize," Lucy chirped, her enthusiasm radiating through the air. They arrived at a booth where kids were trying to knock over milk bottles with softballs. Albright hesitated, his hands shoving deep into his pockets. It was as if he stood at the edge of a diving board, peering into the deep water below. Charlie watched the interaction, nervous yet hopeful. Albright stood tall but looked uncertain, like a mountain not sure if it should let rain flow down its face. Maybe this isn't for me, he muttered, his brows knitting together. Don't think. Just try. Charlie encouraged, remembering his own hesitations in moments that mattered. Lucy believes in you. She sees the good you could bring. Just give it a shot. Albright closed his eyes for a brief second, fighting against doubts that whispered in the back of his mind. Finally, he exhaled heavily, an exasperated sigh that felt too loaded for the cheerful sounds around him. He stepped up to the booth, the kids around him noticing the towering figure with both awe and confusion. As Albright picked up a ball, the laughter of the children echoed, urging him on. He concentrated, perhaps for the first time in ages, and threw the ball. It landed with a dull thud against a bottle, glancing off, but not knocking it over. A collective awe came from the onlookers. Try again. Lucy squealed, bouncing on her toes. Albright felt a flicker of something familiar, determination, the kind that fueled his drive in business, now warm and inviting in this new space. With a measured breath, he cast another ball. This time, it struck true, toppling the bottles with a crash. The crowd erupted in cheers, Lucy clapping wildly. See, you did it, Charlie exclaimed, grinning ear to ear. Albright felt a strange warmth spread through him. It's just a game, he replied, but there was no denying the thrill that coursed through his veins. The tension that had knotted his chest began to loosen, just a bit. I didn't think you can do so much more. Lucy chimed in, her smile brighter than the sun. Like, be my hero. Hero? The word tugged at something deep inside Albright, carving out a space he thought he had long forgotten. The echoes of his past decisions flashed in his mind, reminders of missed opportunities and relationships lost in the pursuit of success. Could he really change? As they moved to the next booth, where kids were trying to toss rings over soda bottles, Albright surprised himself by picking up the rings with purpose. He didn't win every time, but laughter erupted from him, laughter he thought he had locked away. Joy bubbled within him, overflowing with every cheer from Lucy. But just as the moment felt electric, he caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the crowd. It was one of his business associates, someone who had been on his case about potential deals and profit margins. That sharp reminder of his old life sent a chill down his spine. Mr. Albright, the associate called out, waving as if he were on an urgent mission. Albright's heart sank. This was the world he left behind, the expectations that pulled him away from this light. He felt the joy start to fizzle as reality crept in. Would he have to choose between the happiness blossoming around him and the business empire he had built? Charlie noticed the shift in Albright's demeanor, the shadow of doubt creeping back. As Lucy spun in delight, completely unaware, Charlie realized this moment was a turning point. He needed to help Albright see it clearly. Let us keep playing, Charlie urged, but the urgency in his voice concealed the bigger question looming close. Could Albright manage to step into the light, or would fear snatch him back into the shadows of his old life? The answer felt tantalizingly close, and Charlie could only hope that the spark ignited today wouldn't flicker out. The challenge was just beginning. Albright stood frozen, his gaze locked on his associate. The chatter of the festival faded into a dull roar, overshadowed by the pounding in his chest. It was as if he had stepped back in time, shackled by the very life he had vowed to escape. Lucy's laughter and Charlie's encouragement felt distant, muffled under the weight of expectation. Mr. Albright, I thought that was you. The associate pressed through the crowd, his face brightening at the sight of the successful businessman he knew. We need to talk. I've got a deal on the table that could know. It slipped out before Albright could think twice. The single word cut through the air, sharp and unexpected. His associate paused, surprise flitting across his face. Charlie's eyes widened in disbelief, while Lucy, oblivious to the tension, spun in delight around the ring toss booth. What do you mean no? The associate pressed, a hint of confusion in his voice. This could really benefit your company. The wind seemed to still, and Albright felt the weight of the moment settle around him. What was most tempting, the lure of success or the warmth radiating from Lucy, whose bright smile was a stark contrast to the cold business world he knew so well? I mean no, he repeated, his voice steadier this time. I'm done. I don't want to play that game anymore. The realization nestled comfortably inside him. As if he were shedding a heavy coat on a warm summer day, Lucy's laughter broke through the fog enveloping him, pulling him back into the moment. She turned, her beaming face filled with innocence and joy. "Mr. Albright, come play with us. You're my hero now." His heart swelled at her words. Here was a child, unburdened by the complexities of adulthood, seeing him as something more than just a businessman with the weight of endless responsibilities. She believed he could be more than what he had been. "What is going on?" the associate pressed, casting a wary eye between the boy and the girl. "Nothing you'd understand," Albright replied, his tone firm but gentle. He stepped away, leaving the associate standing there, his mouth opening and closing in disbelief. Taking a deep breath, Albright turned back to Lucy and Charlie. "Let us keep playing," he said, a new warmth flooding through him. Each word was a deliberate choice that echoed his desire to embrace the joy he felt moments ago. With Lucy leading the way, they ventured toward another booth, the sounds of laughter and celebration washing over them like a cleansing tide. The vibrant colors felt like a sanctuary, wrapping around him in a way that felt almost magical. "What is next?" he asked, leaning down to Lucy. "Face painting. I want to be a butterfly," she squealed as they approached the booth. Albright experienced an exhilarating sense of freedom. For the first time in years, he was stepping away from the chains of expectations. The more he engaged with Lucy, the more he realized he was finding himself anew. Colors splashed onto Lucy's cheek, transforming her into a swirling butterfly. Watching her, he felt his heart flutter too, reminiscent of days long gone. "Can I get one too?" he asked Charlie, surprising even himself. "Sure," Charlie chuckled. "Butterflies for all." As the artist began to paint, Albright closed his eyes, allowing the world around him to fade. He could almost hear the echoes of every decision that led him to this moment. Was it too late to rewrite his own story? But just as he felt the brush glide against his skin, the laughter was punctured by a harsh, unexpected noise. A loud argument broke out near the food stalls. It snapped Albright out of his bliss. "Let us check it out," Lucy urged, her eyes wide with curiosity. Before he could even respond, she darted off towards the chaos, dragging Charlie along. Albright stood for a moment, torn. Should he follow, dive back into the fray of life he was trying to leave behind? He took a breath and then dashed after them. In that moment, he understood this challenge would be more than just a decision. It would be a journey. A journey not just through the festival, but within himself. What awaited on the other side of that ruckus? Would it test his newfound resolve, or would it be a beacon guiding him toward a brighter future? One thing was certain. Something profound was about to unfold. Charlie rushed after Lucy and Charlie, his heart pounding at the sight of two men arguing, their voices rising above the joyful symphony of the festival. The carefree atmosphere felt a world away as they pushed through the crowd that had gathered around the scene. "Stay close, Lucy," Charlie called out, gently pulling her behind him. He felt a flutter of anxiety, but also a tug of resolve. He had come too far to retreat now. This was more than a moment of fun. It was a chance to confront real challenges, the very struggles he once turned away from. As they reached the crowd, Charlie recognized one of the men, Brian, a longtime community member and advocate for the center. The other, a man with stern features, was challenging Brian's insistence on keeping the community center open. "You're wasting resources. It's just not viable," the man barked, his words edged with disdain. "People need this place. Families depend on it," Brian shouted back, fiery passion igniting in his voice. Charlie's heart raced. The gulf between those who had abundance and those fighting for survival was crystallizing before him. This was the core of the struggle he needed to address, and here, standing beside Lucy, he felt the weight of responsibility like never before. "Let us talk about this calmly." Charlie stepped forward, his voice steady. The crowd hushed, surprise flashing across their faces. It felt surreal, this transformation happening right before his eyes. Had he really stepped out of his castle of solitude to confront a heated issue? Lucy squeezed his hand, her eyes wide with admiration. "You're brave," she whispered, her innocent faith filling him with warmth. "Why should we listen to you?" The stern man replied, crossing his arms defensively. "What do you know about our struggles?" "I'm just beginning to understand," Charlie admitted, vulnerability spilling from his heart. "But I know far too well what it means to hide behind wealth while ignoring the people around me. That has to stop. We must come together." Murmurs rolled through the crowd, eyes shifting from Charlie to Brian, who looked momentarily stunned by the millionaire's honesty. The unease in the air began to lift ever so slightly. Lucy piped up, her spirit undimmed. Mr. Charlie believes in kindness. If we work together, we can save our center. Her words resonated, touching hearts around them. A ripple of agreement surged, as others in the crowd began to nod. Maybe it's time for a new partnership, Brian offered cautiously, glancing at Charlie. We can't build walls between us anymore. We need to unite, share our resources and voices. If Mr. Albright is willing, perhaps he can help us find new solutions. Albright, who had been standing silently at the edge, stepped in, tension visibly easing from his frame. I want to help, he said, surprising himself as he uttered the words. You're right. We need to harness the strength of this community. The crowd stirred with a mixture of shock and hope, a fresh energy blossoming in the air. Albright turned to Lucy, a child who had inspired him in ways he never expected. And we need more events, he urged, determination igniting in his voice. Let us host fundraisers that engage everyone. Let us create new programs that connect us, not just financially, but personally. As the realization struck him, Charlie felt a swell of joy, knowing they were no longer just confronting a threat. They were welcoming the possibility of unity and friendship. I'll organize it, Charlie proclaimed, stepping confidently forward. A burst of cheers erupted from the crowd, and he couldn't help but beam at the sight of Lucy bouncing with excitement. Together, the community intertwined, embracing the opportunity to forge bonds stronger than any had expected. They would not let fear govern them. Instead, they would rise as one. As the evening unfolded, laughter and music filled the air again. But this time, it felt different. Hope radiated from the very heart of the festival, and as Charlie watched Lucy join her friends, eyes twinkling with unabashed joy, he knew there was no turning back. He had stepped away from isolation, transformed by the power of connection, kindness, and a little girl's unwavering belief. The festival continued into the night, vibrant and full of promises. Each smile and cheer became a thread weaving through the fabric of an unbreakable community. Together, they found their voices, united against challenges, stronger than any single person could achieve alone. In that moment, Charlie understood this was just the beginning. He had stepped into a life worth living. Turning back to Albright, he saw a partner ready to embrace the light of possibility. Let us keep this going, Charlie said. Let us give this community everything we can, together. Yes, Albright replied, an unexpected warmth shining in his eyes. Together. As the laughter of children rang out, brighter than any wealth Charlie once held, he knew this journey would reshape not just their lives, but the very heart of the community they cherished. There, amid the joy and laughter, transformation flourished, a story rewriting itself with every act of kindness, and every heart reaching out to connect. Now, as you reflect on this heartwarming transformation, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm for more inspiring tales. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this beautiful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible change. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.